When I play our game and then talk, I'm trying, Jennifer.
Rip City, we are back. We're back on schedule. We only missed one day, like I said last podcast, because we wanted to let the game happen. We are back on schedule. You will be hearing this Wednesday morning, bright and early, 7 o'clock on your way to work, because we all got to plug away. But I got to make a shout out. Shout out to Brokeback Fountain 1 on Reddit. The last couple podcasts, I have been trying to figure out what is going on with my microphone and why it sounds so weird all the time. And he had made a comment in a message with us about how it sounded weird, which got me thinking even more on it. And I realized that instead of using my fancy microphone that I paid all this money for, I was going off of some crappy webcam that is hooked up to my computer. So Brokeback Fountain 1, thank you for, confirming that I thought I sounded weird. And I have it now fixed, so I appreciate it. But that's not why you guys are here. Fawad is not able to join us tonight, unfortunately, but we still got Sean here. Sean, how are you doing tonight?
I am good. What is up, everybody? Shout out Brokeback Fountain. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say, but we appreciate your help. And yeah, we're here. We're a week in, and basketball's back in swing.
Yeah, we got 3 games to talk about. When we were talking about doing an episode today, I had mentioned I kind of had a semi-hot take, which may get a little bit of some people up in a roar and some people agreeing. So I have not told Sean or Fawad what this hot take is, but they are going to encounter it while you guys do. So, but what we're going to first jump into is, since our last podcast, we've had 3 games. We are not completely defeated. We have won 1 game. We are 1-3. But the very first game after the Warriors was against the Pelicans. And for those of you that watched, I'm sure you guys saw that it was a close game. Brandon Ingram hit a game winner against us to beat us by 2. You heard the who's, or what was it? Tell them who's better or whatever. Tell her who's better, something like that.
Baby
I don't know if you guys saw that. Yeah, you got some baby mama drama with Ingram and Simons. And I mean, let's be honest. Even as Blazer fans, we know who's better. We know. Was it ever a question? I don't know, but I would gladly have Brandon Ingram over Anthony Simons. But anyways, that game was an interesting game. It was a competitive game. That's the first time that I've watched a Pelicans game all the way through with Zion Williamson playing the entire time, not getting hurt. So it was interesting to see him, and he once again dominated. He's huge, and there's not much you can do. But with that being said, I think that game was probably, I'm trying to think if there was a better one, but probably Jeremy Grant's best game. He had 34 points. He was pretty efficient shooting. He had 6. Which I'm going to say this right now. Jeremy Grant has, like, rebounding. It's not necessarily great, but it's definitely improved from what he was last year and the year before. I think he's averaging like 5 rebounds a game, which isn't that great, but for him it is. But yeah, to me, Jeremy Grant had a great game. Simons had an okay game. It wasn't a game, and I'll let Sean get into it here. Is Scoot Henderson definitely had the best game of the season. So up until that point, he had 15 points, very efficient. He was 7-9. He was getting to the lane. I think he had 6 assists, if I remember. I don't have the stats in front of me now. I accidentally closed out of it, but I think he had 6 assists. It was a very good game for Scoot. Sean, I know you said you missed either one or both of the Pelicans games. Was this one of the ones you missed?
I was in and out on both. I didn't get to watch the full games, but I definitely got a good amount of it and watched all the highlights. Quick shout out to a non-Blazer that I thought was great. Watching CJ still has some gas in the tank. Went 20 points in the first game, 27 in the second. He's one of two guys with Dame who I'll always root for, so it's cool to see him still have some game left, and it's definitely far from washed at this point.
Yeah, and this first game was what we would call the Hawkins game because Hawkins for the Pelicans absolutely torched us. It seems like it's pretty status quo for the Blazers to have some unknown guard just go off against us. And he had 24 points, hit 4 threes, was very efficient shooting. I think he only missed like 2 or 3 shots. So Hawkins, I don't even honestly know who he is, but he tore us up. Let me look at the second game. I don't think he did as well the second game. Maybe he still did pretty good at the second game. So yeah, the first game, it was rough. Brandon Ingram got the switch at the end of the game, got, our weakest link on defense, Simons, on him, and took advantage of him like most NBA players should do. Hit a turnaround just above the free throw line. It was a good shot. It was a good game. I enjoyed watching the game. The second game, clearly we were pissed off because we put an absolute whipping on them. But it's weird how you play back-to-back games against the same team, and it's like completely just polar opposite of a game. Zion absolutely struggled. CJ scored 27. He shot just below 50%. And then this Hawkins guy, which maybe I need to start paying attention to Hawkins, had 17 points again. So, I don't know. Do you know who Hawkins is?
I don't know much about him. All I know is he's giving me PTSD to old random dudes who've torched us. I think of Von Wafer in a playoff series. That guy has kept me up at night for years, and hopefully Hawkins doesn't repeat the trend. It looks like he was a first round pick last year. So maybe there's something there. Maybe they have a find, but no, don't know much about him, and kind of had a coming out party against us. So you don't love seeing that.
Yeah, what's new? Coming out party against the Portland Trailblazers. That seems about normal.
That's right.
Yeah, he was he was the 14th pick, so I mean he must have I honestly don't know. I don't even remember this guy at UConn, but it says he's from UConn. So he has to have game to be doing what he's doing and be doing it consistently. So but for us, Simons kind of struggled. He was 8 of 17, he had 27 points. I'm trying to think of who else jumped out at me. I think Jeremy Grant had another pretty good game, if I recall. He had 28 points. Our starters played really well. All of our starters played really well. They were all positive in the plus minus. The only thing I wish I could see more is Tumani. I feel like if people aren't watching and they just see his stat line, they're going to just think he's just a blah player, but he is not at all. He affects the game so much. He impacts it so much more than the stats show. And I know we talked about that on the last podcast, but Scoot had a rough game. He still ended plus 20, which is pretty crazy. Well, it's because he had 7 assists and 5 rebounds because he shot 2 of 12. So to finish plus 20, he was playing some good defense. He was making some good passes. But 2 of 12 is pretty rough. Did you get to watch any of the second game?
I did a little bit, and just one thing on Scoot is I actually don't mind that game from him that much. Obviously, he didn't play well. Didn't have the shot, turned it over more than I would like with 4. But I do love seeing a player who is not scoring well find ways to contribute in other ways to the game. And you're right. He played hard defense. He rounded out his stat line with 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and that to me is a sign of effort and is a sign that even on nights where he doesn't have his shot, he's not going to be a complete loss. If you think of a guy like Simons, if he doesn't have his shot, he's not helping us. But if Scoot can be a guy who can find a way to contribute even on days where he just frankly doesn't have it, I mean, that's a positive sign for things to come.
Yeah, I mean, that is something we have talked about, Fawad and I, multiple times in past podcasts. Like, if you're having an off night offensively, you have to do other things to impact the game and be an asset to the team. Simons has always kind of been that player that is very one-dimensional, and if offense is not rolling, then he's kind of just he's out there collecting minutes because, like you said, Scoot affected the game in other ways. He was playing great defense. I wouldn't say great defense, but he was playing very, very good defense. He was getting rebounds, and like you said, he was getting assists. I mean, that's all you can ask. If you're not making your shot, that's fine. Be aggressive still, make plays for your team, and contribute to a winning basketball game. And I think that's exactly what Scoot did. One other thing that's becoming a hot topic here is shout out to Hot Topic in the malls, everybody. Is Clean Kong. You know, he seems to be getting winded real fast. He's not being able to play a lot of minutes, but when he is in, I don't know about you, Sean. That dude, he is a defensive monster out there. He is affecting so much. He gets, dude, if we can figure out a way to get him out there longer, which I think we have to, he's an asset, like a big asset. We got a steal in the draft with him.
Clingan's a difference maker, man. I mean, he is someone who he's obviously turning away shots at the rim, but you see it beyond his blocks. Guys are afraid to drive in. You see much more like drive in the lane, kick it out.
Yep.
Not guys contesting him as much. He's not having the foul issue that a lot of bigs his size have, especially like shot blocking specialists like him. And he's definitely someone who is a unique player. But at worst, you have a great matchup, big who you can put in depending on what the other team's running. And you're right. If he's someone who we can get his conditioning in check, he has the all-around game in order to contribute for 30-plus minutes. Conditioning's always been his issue. I thought in the preseason it looked a little bit better than it did in college, but still clearly has a long ways to go. But thankfully, for first time in what feels like a long time, we have a surplus of startable bigs, and so we can afford to play him, 15, 20 minutes a game and have that game-changing big on the defensive end that we've been looking for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, you got Ayton, you got Clingan, you got Reith, and then we still have Robert Williams, who has played like a total of 7 games for us, but we still have him. So it's like you have so many options at the center, the forward position, and Duop can hit the threes, which, honestly, I'm surprised we don't use him more, but at the same time, I see why. I mean, we have a log jam everywhere.
Speaking on Robert Williams, I played one time in a pickup tournament at the Moda Center. I think we probably played 7 or 8 games. I might have played more games at the Moda than Robert Williams has. So I'd love to see, he should be back this year. So hopefully that changes. But for now, he's easy to forget he's on the team.
Right now, you are a more seasoned Trailblazer than he is.
I'll show him where his locker is.
Yeah. So the second game with the Pelicans, we won. I think we won by like 20. I accidentally closed out of that one as well, but we handled them fairly easily. And yeah, I want to see Donovan at least play like, if we could get him anywhere in the 20 to 26 minutes, I think that would be perfect. At least get him out there enough. He doesn't got to play 30 minutes, but if he can do 20 to 26 minutes, and I think he can be such a big difference maker for us going like future down the road Trailblazers. Maybe not right away, but a year, 2 years from now, he can be such a big asset to us.
Let's give him the same grace we've been giving Scoot,
Clingan's
20,
sure.
So we got to think of this in a really long-term view, but early signs are good. He's as good on the defensive end as advertised. I haven't seen the passing that I saw in college and even in some of the preseason, but, we're 4 games into the season. He's still settling in. You would think conditioning improves as the season goes on. So, early signs are positive from what I've seen. So I'm really excited about him.
Yeah, there's been a couple of plays where he's made some nice passes and you can see that he has that vision. But like you said, it's not been like over the top like what a lot of people were expecting from him. But also, he's only playing like 12 minutes a game, so there's not much you can do in those 12 minutes.
That's right.
But yeah, I'm so excited to see him develop some more. And then the last game we had before tonight was against the Kings. I was able to watch about 3/4 worth of it. I missed a little bit of it, but that first half, there was not a thing we could do to not get a foul called on DeMar DeRozan. That dude just got a foul every time he went down. He got free throws constantly. At halftime, I looked, he had 10 free throw attempts, but then I don't think he had any more after that. So clearly something changed, but God, I was getting so frustrated. It was like every play down, every possession down, he was getting some kind of foul. But that game was what I watched. It was a close game when I was watching it. We were only down by like 4 or 5 at halftime, if I remember right. And it was a close game. Something that I'm seeing a lot in not Discord, sorry, in Reddit is some people starting to become concerned with Denny. And I'm not going to go too far into it. If you want to go for it, you sure can. I'm not necessarily worried at all. Denny plays very, very good defensively. He's kind of pulling a Tumani in some parts where it's like not necessarily his stats are reflecting how much he is impacting the game. He's getting rebounds. He's pushing the pace. He may not be knocking down shots right now. I don't honestly know if he's even made a 3 yet for us. I'm trying to think of a time that he has. But I'm not worried. I don't think anyone should be worried. He's on a brand new team, a team that's still trying to just figure out their identity on their own, let alone a new player coming to it. He's a player that I wouldn't say needs the ball in his hand, but he definitely is a little more effective when he has the ball in his hand. And when you got Simons and you got Jeremy Grant with the ball a lot, it's kind of hard for him to have it. But a lot of people are worried about Denny, and I don't think we need to be. Sean, do you have any opinions on Denny?
Yeah, I land somewhere right in the middle on that. I'm definitely not full-blown panic, but we've certainly gotten the floor of who he is as a player for the first 4 games of the season. Three-point shooting is what took him from a solid role player to a really good piece the previous season. And so far through 4 games, he's 1 of 15 from 3, and that's bad. And I think last year he was 35% plus. And if he can do that, he's a great defender, solid passer, got good all around game, and he can really contribute. But if the 3 isn't going to fall, we're getting, I almost want to say like similar to Tumani, worse version of Tumani at some level, but still the defense is there, the hustle's there. I have hope that the shot will fall. But, overall, if you don't think about the first round picks, because those are gone, we can't use those now. But we're getting a solid player on a great contract who has upside in his 3-point shot. If he's able to find it, then we're going to get great value at his contract. But even if we don't, he's still going to perform at the value his contract dictates. And so it's not going to kill us. Would I like to see him shoot the ball better? Absolutely. But he's doing some good things. I mean, like, for example, that first Pelicans game where we lost by 2, he struggled. He went 1 for 9, 2 points, but similar to Scoot, he had 6 assists, 6 rebounds, still found ways to do other things on the floor, and even added a steal and 2 blocks. So he's a guy who's going to find a way to contribute. If he can find consistency in his jumper, he'll really take the next level to a plus starter. But at worst, he's a role player, and we're paying him like a role player, so it's not a huge problem.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, a lot of people, I wonder if people don't actually realize how like valuable of a contract his is. Not just let alone not that it's super expensive, but the fact that it each year gets less and less instead of more and more. So that's such an advantage right there. And I lost what I was going to say. I had something fired up for you, and I totally just lost it.
Sorry, it's early in the season for us too.
It's gone. I don't know. It's gone forever. But yeah, I'm not too worried about Denny. It's definitely like, we were very excited to see him, and there was a lot of hype around him, and these first 4 games hasn't been great, but I still think that he is going to be a very good player for us. Do you have anything you want to add on that game?
For the Kings game, I would say I watched every minute of that game. I watched it with a good buddy of mine who's a diehard Kings fan. It was ugly, man. It was bad basketball. That first half was close because the Kings were playing down to our level, to be frank. Neither team could make a shot. It looked like our whole offense was just throw yourself in the lane, either get fouled, make a tough contested layup, or we get a putback. But the jump shooting was pretty abysmal. I mean, let me look at what the splits on the threes were. Yeah, we shot 4 of 22 from 3. They shot 14 of 35. That says it all that you need right there. DeRozan, had his way with us. He's an interesting player where, talking to my Kings buddy, he kind of believes the Kings play a little bit more fluid when he's not on the court. They're certainly still trying to figure out how to play with him. He can be a little bit of a ball stopper, but his
Yeah.
mid-range game is so good that he can get away with it. So, first half, both teams played terrible in my opinion. Second half, Kings, especially the third quarter, played to their regular level, and we couldn't match that, and that's where they really blew the game open. So, ugly game of basketball, which I didn't watch it, but I did, and here we are.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't great. It was about what we expect from this team. The only thing I could say is when you're having these bad games, and it's not necessarily the Kings game. I want to say it was maybe it was the Kings game. No, it was the Warriors game. It was the Warriors game. We just want effort. Like, just dude, the amount of times the Warriors took the ball out of bounds off of a made basket, and some dude is just cutting down just running down the court free, getting a pass. Like, that's just effort. Yeah, we're losing by 30. We're losing by however much we were losing by, but it's effort. And yeah, we're not the greatest team. You still go out there and you still play as hard as you possibly can, no matter what the score is. I mean, granted, I'm not I'm not an NBA player, right? I know that. I know I was not good enough to be an NBA player. At one point I thought I was, and I was I see my faults now. But one thing I can tell you is it didn't matter what the score was. I was playing as hard as I possibly could, and it was almost like embarrassment if something like that happened while I was on the court. If we were just lackadaisical and let someone just do something like that, like that's embarrassing. And I'm out on the court, I'd be doing everything I possibly could. And that pissed me off watching that Warriors game. I don't even know if we talked about this in our podcast, but that pissed me off. Like, I just want effort. That's all I care about this year is seeing people develop and putting out effort out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree. Wins are going to be few and far between by all accounts this year, and culture is the big thing I want to see us
Yes.
cultivate. And Chauncey's struggled with that. It's not an easy task, right? Keeping a group of guys engaged who know they're not playing for a playoff spot, who know that at some level the GM, the coach want a tank and want a high draft pick. It's tough to keep guys engaged. So I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I think Chauncey is probably gone after this year, and we'd start fresh. But he hasn't had an easy job, and for a new coach to come on, this is going to be one of the tougher jobs in the league. But it should be a bare minimum. These guys are making so much money to just go out and play. Especially you got young guys like this. You should have a baseline of effort. You shouldn't be getting blown out by 40, and you should have. I'd rather see 20-minute rotations on guys and just see them
Mhm.
burn out quick, run hard, and we have enough depth that we can accommodate that. So, yeah, that's been disappointing so far. But speaking on effort, I got to mention this for Fawad. Looks like Jabari Walker, one of our effort guys, one of our change of pace guys, got into the game in the Kings game, got a good 20 minutes and scored
Yeah,
15. So,
he played good.
yeah, maybe he's a guy who can kind of help develop that culture for us, who can kind of be a locker room guy. It's gonna be hard for him to be a leader given that he's not a starter. He's kind of a fringe rotation guy, but he's got the right mentality, and I want to see that rub off on some of the rest of the locker room.
That's something that I loved about Wesley Matthews. Like, it
Yep.
did not matter if he was coming off the bench in Utah or playing for us. He played so hard that it was like infectious. You see him out there, you wanted to play just like him because he was putting out so much effort. And when Jabari comes in and does that same kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff that rubs off on other players, or it should rub off on other players and make those players want to do the exact same thing. So I agree. I 100%. I love when Jabari's in. I think he plays so hard, and I know Fawad was happy seeing him get some extra time out there. But yeah, that's a great point, Sean. Great point. All right, the moment of truth.
Hot take time.
It's not that hot of a take. I promise. There's going to be a lot of people that are like, "That's not that hot. Why are you making a big deal about this?" But here it is. I swear to God, if we don't trade Anthony Simons in the next month, I'm going to lose my mind. I cannot take any more of it. I cannot take any more of it. We have given him so much time to be the guy, to develop, to improve on anything other than just that he can shoot the ball. I cannot. The effort he puts out this year, these 4 games that I have seen, the effort is just like he just don't care. He's just there. He's getting his 20 points. He's getting his 15, 16 shots a game. Am I the only one seeing this? I feel like other people complain about it too, but I'm done. I can't take it anymore. I've waited and I've waited and I've waited many years of Dame Simons, CJ Simons, Dame, like all of this stuff. I'm done. I'm so over it. I'm so over a player just being essentially one-dimensional and being a very good offensive player. I'm not doubting that he's not good offensively, but that's it. That's all he brings. He doesn't do anything else for us. I don't know. I don't. He's such a liability defensively. You can't do anything with him defensively. The other team, the opposing team is just picking him out every possession, pick and rolls, trying to get him to switch onto the ball handler. It's just constant, and I'm so tired of it. And then just to see like the effort and just like he's disinterested in everything we're doing, and it's driving me absolutely crazy. And I know he's still super young, but I know he has a fairly decent contract, but we've got to move. We've got to move. We've got to move. We can't let it be another CJ scenario where we hold on to him for so long that we do finally decide, yeah, we got to move him, and now we're getting even less value than we should have. So, Sean, let me ask you this question. How do you feel about Simons?
Love it. I love what you're saying, man. I'm sick of it too. It's like you said, he is who I've always thought he is and who he's always been. He can come in and score, and that's it. And sometimes that's great. And if you have a great team around it, that's a valuable player. Yes. And there's value on the market for him somewhere. He's good enough to command some sort of capital back on a trade. But for what we're doing here, it's a bad fit. He's not giving effort, like you mentioned. He seems disinterested in a lot of games. And there's just no excuse for him not to just be far and away the best guard on the roster right now. Sharp's out, Scoot's coming off the bench and is a massive question mark still. Like, for example, in the Kings game, he took 12 shots. Like, we can't have that. If you're going to come in and be a one-dimensional scorer, you have to keep shooting the ball. And I'd rather live and die with that, with him engaged and pushing and trying to find ways to score points, which is what he's great at. But if he's taking 12 shots and he's going 4 of 12, he's a massive net negative on the team. And for someone who, going into the season, you would think is, at worst, our third best player? You could argue all the way up to 1 potentially. It's just not good enough. And there's enough value out there for him, in my opinion, that I think it's time. Granted, if they waited until the deadline and some team gets desperate, overpays, I'm cool with that. But I've seen enough for him to not be in my ideal future plans for the Blazers. And frankly, I've also seen enough from Scoot to believe that I'd rather have him out for 35 minutes than I would Simons. The flashes have been a little bit more consistent this year. There's been bad play, but we knew that would happen. But it's not the start he had last year that was just, what are we doing? Can this guy play in the NBA? He looks like a legit NBA point guard now. And so I'm ready for Simons to pass the very dimly lit torch to Scoot and to move on and let's really complete some of the final stages of this rebuild and just blow the whole thing up. I'm ready.
Yeah, and something else that we all have to take into account when we're talking about Scoot kind of struggling a little bit and the roster we have is not necessarily a roster that you think a point guard that is like Scoot is going to be able to just go out there, pass the ball, and get assists easily like you would with a better established roster. We don't necessarily have shooters. So when he's driving in and kicking out to someone who's wide open for a 3, we're lucky if it goes in most of the time. So, these assist numbers, if he was on a different team with a more balanced roster with better shooters, better playmakers, I think those numbers would be even better. But this also is going to lead into my second hot take, which is not much of a hot take.
But before you go into that, can I just speak
Yep.
to what you just said? Because I
Yeah.
thought you hit the nail on the head with the shooting aspect. I mean, it goes in two parts for me. One, you're absolutely right. Like I can count 5, 6 times where Scoot kicked out to an open three and it just bricked. That happened in the Kings game more times than I can count, and it's frustrating because he's making the right play and not getting rewarded. But also on top of that, you're making his best skill more difficult to accomplish,
Yes.
which is driving to the rim.
Yes.
He has a clogged lane. Our guys can't shoot and spread the floor from him. Guys can cheat off cheat off Denny if he's shooting this bad. You can cheat off a lot of our perimeter guys and clog the lane, and that gets Scoot in trouble. And so it's a tough roster for him, like you said. And we have guys with 3-point shooting ability, or at least I thought we did. And so I'd love to see that kind of return to what feels like would be a median. Like, I don't think Denny's going to go 1 of 15 all year. If he can pump that up, that'd be great. Tumani too, and a lot of these guys, but it's not the best roster for him. And more than anything, I mean, once Sharp gets back, I'm really hoping that we can spread things out a little bit more.
And that's another reason why I feel like just moving on from Simons, you're creating minutes, more minutes for Scoot, more minutes for Sharp, where they can play in their natural positions instead of having to have Sharp play the 3 or have Sharp play. Like I would much rather have Scoot and Sharp out there with Tumani than Simons and Tumani. Like, it to me doesn't make any sense why we would have 3 guards that we want to develop, that we want to play, that we want to produce, and you have 3 of them that you have to pretty much play in the same position, or one can kind of sneak off and play the second one. Enough's enough.
No, I agree. Enough's enough.
And I did say, like, within the next month, I am totally fine with it being at the trade deadline. Like, I want it to happen. It needs to happen. It's gone on long enough. Jeremy Grant as another player, I think he's great. Like, I would love to keep him on our team. I wish we had him back when we were, really competing, but it's just, he's kind of like, he shouldn't be on our team.
Yeah.
He's not really bringing us anything other than like being one of the better players on our team. And that's unfortunate because I love Jeremy. I think he's a great player, and he's going to go to some other team and he's going to be a great player for them, and he's going to contribute to winning basketball. But it just feels like a waste. It feels like we're wasting his career here. It feels like we could take advantage of what he can do and, get some assets back that'll help us, whether that's picks or some kind of player. But that also frees up a little bit more time for other players. So that's another thing. But number one priority right now to me is Simons has got to go.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking on Grant, just right player, wrong age, right?
Yep.
Wrong window. I hope we trade him to a contender, man. I feel bad. He's, he got drafted by the Pistons, played there for a number of years, and came here. I'd love to see what he can do on a good team. He's, by all accounts, good locker room guy. He's kind of that stretch 3-4 that a lot of teams are looking for. So. Yeah, nothing negative to say about Jeremy, just like you, but it's time to move on, and I'm sure he'd be thrilled with it. I don't think he'd have any issue with that.
Yeah, and this is not some kind of panic because we've lost 3 games and we're not a good team. Like, I fully am aware that we're probably going to win 20 games, and I'm okay with that. I'm fine with it. Yeah, it sucks, and I would much rather us win 50 games, but I understand where we're at. I understand what we're trying to do. But when you have Simons, when you have Grant, you're limiting what you're trying to do because you want to develop Sharp, you want to develop Scoot, you want to develop Tumani, you want to develop Klingon, you want to develop. I mean, even Rupert, you want to develop. And yet you have these guys that you have to play because they're good players and you've paid them so much money, but that's all they're doing. They're just playing. They're not contributing. And this is not a knock on Jeremy Grant or Simons. It's just, we're not in that stage. We need to just figure out what we have, build on Scoot, build on Sharp, build on Ayton if we're going to keep Ayton, and see what we have. My last thing, and you kind of mentioned it, and I 100% agree. This is the last year of Chauncey Billups. So here it is. I have grown up playing basketball my entire life. I have watched basketball my entire life. I don't know what the hell we are doing offensively. I have no idea. I don't think Chauncey knows what the hell we're doing offensively. I can't even put it into words when I'm watching us in a half court set what the hell we're doing. It's just screen and roll. It's post up with Ayton. It's these little back cuts off of Ayton. Like, that's all it is. There's nothing. There's no like, I don't know. Let me ask you this question, Sean, and you can respond to that as well if you want to. Do you even feel like the team, like the players themselves, believe in Chauncey?
That's a great question. Wow. That's a really good question. God, I think the players like Chauncey. I think they like him.
Yes, I think you can like someone but not believe in the way they coach.
And don't get me wrong, I think it's time for Chauncey to go. But I don't know who you could bring in right now that you could believe in outside of some of the best coaches in the league. And
sure,
if I'm being honest, like this is not the most appealing job across the NBA. I want Chauncey gone, and I'm willing to take a shot on a first-time coach, but we're not getting Thibodeau in here. We're not getting like some established, great coach who's been entrenched in great jobs for his entire career. It's just not going to happen here. So, you know, do I blame Chauncey for a lot of this? At levels, yes. I think that a better coach could get more out of our guys. I think we have a little bit more talent than we're showing. But to me, we're talking about the difference between winning 20 games and 35, maybe. You know, our GM straight up said in the preseason media day that this is not a competitive roster. I have never heard a sports GM say that in my life. That was like shocking to me. He basically said we're gonna suck, and the players hear that, they know what they're signing up for. And so it's, you know, it's a very clear rebuild. Chauncey's, in my opinion, kind of a placeholder, but we're wasting good years on some of our young guys that really need to develop good habits, and I haven't seen that. So I guess that's a long-winded way to answer your question. I think Chauncey is, I don't think they believe he could make them a better player, but I think they're comfortable with him for where the team is. But to me, I want more out of the team. So it's not good enough from where I'm sitting.
No, I mean, that's perfect. I think, and I agree 100%. I know bringing a coach in, it could be Phil Jackson. It could be whoever you think is the greatest coach of all time. I know bringing that coach in is not going to make us an immediate contending team or, you know, any more competitive than we probably are with 30, 35 wins. But here's something I have never, ever, I don't recall seeing. I will not say I've never, ever seen it. I have never seen him jump a player. Like, I have never seen him get so, like, you see these other coaches get frustrated with people and you know, show emotion that they're frustrated, you know. I don't ever see that with Chauncey. Like, that game against the Warriors, if that was me as a coach and I see my team just kind of half jogging back, getting beat back constantly, I'm calling timeout and I'm just chewing them out. I don't care that they're professional athletes. You're getting paid to play basketball, and yet you can't even run to the other end of the court. Like, I've never, and maybe you have, and if you have, please tell me. I've never seen it. I've never seen him get like low. Like, it just seems like he's always low energy, just kind of calm and collected. No matter what's happening, he'll get like, maybe he'll smack his hands or something, or, you know, like point at someone. But it's like, he's never like, I have never seen him jump somebody.
Yeah, no, I haven't. And, you know, a lot of the best coaches do it. I mean, Pop is famous for it. He'll lay into you whatever the score is. He doesn't care. And we need that. Chauncey wants to be everybody's buddy. And at some level, you know, I get the point that, like, these are professionals. You need to treat them professional. But the guys we really need to develop right now are in their early 20s. I mean, they're closer to college age than they are to, you know, 30-year-olds. And so you got to coach them up with a little bit more discipline. Playing undisciplined, low-effort basketball is the only thing I didn't want to see this year, and we're seeing it. And that's really frustrating. Because you're going to see lapses in these guys as we go forward. I mean, they're developing bad habits. I can only imagine what practice is like, and culturally it's not conducive to winning in the future. That's why I love the Klingon pick so much, because we brought in a guy who has fire, who wants to win, and who brings in championship experience at, all the levels he played. He won in high school a few times in Bristol and won back-to-back at UConn. And those are the kind of guys we need in our locker room because Chauncey's not bringing that mentality. Winning culture doesn't always foster on a championship team. You have teams that don't win it all with winning culture, and we're so far from winning culture. It's really frustrating. And that's the biggest thing I want to see turn around the rest of the year.
I mean, two things. First off, at one point we had a winning culture and we weren't winning championships. We were a very competitive team. We were making the playoffs every year. We had made a couple runs in the playoffs. We had a winning culture. It goes out the window. You bring in a bunch of young guys, and that's okay. That's understandable. You bring in young guys. That culture kind of goes out the window because now you're having to develop everybody. But it just doesn't seem like there's any culture that you were trying to develop other than let's just go out there and have some fun. And you perfectly, when we're drafting these young guys and they are extremely young, 20, 19, like you have to have some kind of stable development plan for them, or they create these bad habits and it just carries on throughout their career because they never were told that these are bad habits. They were, yeah, coach got mad at me when I did this, but he never really got on me. He just was, a little frustrated with me. He told me don't do that again, and I did it again. And he said don't do that again, and I did it again. And it just that's all it ever was. And that's what we can't have. We cannot have these players be so young and not have some. And you know what? Maybe behind the scenes, Chauncey is just ripping into him. I highly doubt it, but maybe he is. I don't know. I'm fired up, and it's not because we're losing. It's just I want to see us play hard, and I want to see us be like just competitive in the game. We don't have to be a competitive championship team, but just be competitive in the game. I don't want teams looking at the Blazers and be like, all right, chalk this one up for a win. Let's look till next week and let's see what our next game is. Like they should at least be like, well, this is going to be a hard fought win, but we're probably going to win, but it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And that's how I feel like most teams probably feel when they see us on their schedule.
Totally agree. And the athletes we have on this team, we should never get out hustled. I mean, we have length, we have athleticism. There's just absolutely no excuse other than you just don't want it bad enough. And does some of that come on the players? Absolutely. You need more from the players for sure. But it all, the buck stops at the coach. And it's been a consistent theme in all of his years in Portland. Even when he had Dame, we're still somehow tanking. I understand Dame got hurt and stuff, but like better teams and better cultures find a way, and we just never have. We've never looked dangerous. We've never looked, like you said, tough to beat. We're just a bottom NBA team for the last, 3-4 years, whatever it's been. And there's, on paper, if I'm playing 2K, like I like the young pieces we got, but like it's easy to forget the human element. And like these guys need to learn how to practice and be pros and treat the game seriously. And I don't know that Chauncey's the right guy to develop those skill sets.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys have watched this, but on Netflix, there's a show on Netflix called Starting Five. Have you seen it, Sean?
No, my buddy's been telling me about it. I got to watch it.
So Netflix is going through this thing where they're following, all these athletes in these different sports, like quarterbacks and wide receivers. Like those were shows that were real popular. And they did one with Starting Five. And one of the things I just kind of recently started watching it. One of the things I've noticed is the difference in player, like the mindset of the players. Like Anthony Edwards I love that dude. Like I love that dude. Is an absolute freak. Like he doesn't care about anything but playing basketball. He does not care who he's playing against. He just wants to beat every single person. He said he enjoys playing playing at the away arenas because he likes to upset the fans when they beat, like that's the kind of mindset you want. And I honestly don't feel like there's any player on our team that like puts that mindset out there. It's more just like, let's go and play some basketball and have fun. And sure, that's a good mindset to have, but you got to have some killers on your team. What was it? Coastal Carolina. You got to have some dogs on your team. I think
right.
Carolina. Or no, it wasn't Coastal Carolina, but it's something like that. You got to have some dogs on your team. And, we don't really have that. And, you look at our roster, right? You got probably the most veteran leader we have is probably Jeremy Grant. He's not necessarily been on the greatest teams. He was on the Denver Nuggets at one point when they were being a fairly competitive team. He left that team because he wanted to be a first option. He goes to Detroit, where Detroit is just, we all know what Detroit is. Detroit's another Portland at this point. And so, he doesn't necessarily have that winning culture ingrained in him because he's been on a bad team for most of his career. Then you have Ayton, who was on a pretty good Suns team. But Ayton has always been kind of like, that's one of the knocks that a lot of people have on him, is that he's so passive and so like I don't know. He is kind of strange about that. Like you would think being as big as he is and he could dominate the game if he wanted to, but he just doesn't necessarily want to. So it's like, who do you look to for veteran leadership that brings a winning culture? Like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess Matisse.
I would say Scoot, you would hope, right? But you're totally right. Like, if you look at some of the greatest athletes across sports, Michael Jordan was an asshole. Kobe was an asshole. Tom Brady, Tiger. No, like, they did not make friends with their competitors. They did not have a nice time in practice. They were out for blood. They thought they were going to win. They believed in themselves, and they put their sport first. And I don't know that we have that guy. Scoot, to me, is the only one who, like, he definitely has some dog. Like I could see some moments of effort, and I'd love for that to grow and rub off on the other guys. But yeah, we need a little bit more nastiness. I mean, we're a bottom team. We should be scrappy. We should beat you up when you're on the court because we don't have anything to lose. We should be like a cornered animal that you don't really want to get close to or let close in the fourth quarter because they'll bite you.
Remember Memphis? Remember when Memphis was
Yeah.
like the grind house and like how defensively they were just destroy you defensively?
Oh yeah.
That's all we got to do.
And that's controllable. That's all mentality.
Yes.
And, I would love to see that change. We might need to bring in a guy who can kind of bring that into our locker room. Because I'm not seeing it on the roster so far. But, early in the season, I'm trying to remain even keel. But yeah, I mean, the effort stuff, the schemes we're running, the lack of shooting, just a lot of the stuff has been frustrating to watch so far. But a good thing is we're 4 games into the season and, there's reason to believe that it can go up from here. I mean, we have more talent than we've shown.
Isn't it crazy? We're 4 games in and this is a conversation we're already having. No, and the last thing I'm going to say is that's something that I've always said about defense. Defense is I won't say 100%, but it is a majority effort thing. You can be good defensively if you put the effort to be good defensively. If you are out there working hard defensively, you will be good defensively. Like, it's not that I don't think Simons isn't trying defensively, but he's definitely not putting the same kind of effort other players put on defense. And granted, kind of like Lillard said, when you're the offensive focal point and you have to come down on offense, you can't waste all this energy defensively. So I get it. But at the same time, when, you're not contributing offensively, like we said just a little bit earlier, you got to do something. So to me, defense is such an effort thing. That's why that's why Portland loves these players like Wesley Matthews. You love players like Tumani because they put out effort and they're diving for loose balls. They're making sacrifice plays. They're giving their body up. They're taking charges. All these things. Like at one point, Tumani got a steal. The very next possession took a charge. Like those are the type of things that like should fire you up as a teammate and as a fan. You should love that stuff. So that's the last thing I'm going to say. I've been ranting for the last 20 minutes. It feels like. Do you have anything else, Sean?
No. Just remember, this is a safe space. This is our Blazers therapy corner. And we got to strap in. It's going to be a long season. But I'll end on a positive note. Great draft class ahead. If we're going to tank, it's not the worst year to do it. So let's lock down one of those guys in a year from now and we'll see where we're at from there.
I couldn't agree more. And like I said, I promise you guys, it's not because we're losing. I'm not frustrated because we're losing. I promise. Okay. Once again, Brokeback Fountain, if that was what it was, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Thank you again. Thank you for listening, first of all. And thank you for bringing up the microphone issue. And thank you guys for listening to me rant for the last 20 minutes. It felt good to get it off my chest. Don't even get me started on the Vikings because they can't win a game for the last 2 weeks now. So we want to start a whole nother rant. We can, but I'm going to spare you guys all of that. And I'm going to let you guys all get to your day or night whenever you're listening to this. I appreciate you guys all for listening. Sean, thanks for being here tonight. And as always, Rip City, baby.